What is going on, Only Playbook fans? We're back, and it is week 16. That is right. If you're in standard leagues, it is the semifinals of your fantasy football league. Did you make it here? If you did, congrats. I have Jake alongside me. We are going to do something a little bit different this week. We don't have our normal outline of the way we structure our episodes because it's the semifinals. The people are in the playoffs. People are trying to figure out how to optimize their lineups. We thought it'd be a good time for each of us to run through our lineups that we are partaking in our semifinal matchups. So just kind of hear how we talk out, how we decide who we're starting, who we're sitting, what factors and variables we really take into account to make these decisions. Because this is it, guys. This is it. It's win and move on to the championship, or lose and your entire season was for nothing. And so decisions are going to be very, very interesting and exciting and scary at the same time. So just kind of walking through that thought process, I thought would be a very, very fruitful conversation to have today. My man, Jake, you're in a semifinal in one of your leagues, at least. How are you feeling?
Yeah, disappointed with our dynasty league, man. Lost by 1.2 points this last week as the 3 seed. So I feel like I should have been sitting in the semifinals there. Got Kyle Pitts in our redraft league, so there's really nothing you can do about that when Kyle Pitts drops 40 on a Thursday. You kind of know what the weekend's going to look like. But dynasty wouldn't hurt. You know, A-Chain was 1.2 points away. Just needed one catch on that final drive. Couldn't get it done. But got one semifinal matchup. Had a bye week, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to still be in the game in at least one of your leagues this late into the season, right? So it's unfortunate. I feel like heartbreak is coming. That's kind of the goal, is for people that make the playoffs who are lower seeds, is to find a guy like Kyle Pitts that's gonna, win you a week. It's the only way. If you're a higher seed or you have a better team, more than likely you're going to lose if somebody has that type of day or your entire team shits the bed. So that's kind of what people try to look for, is the diamond in the rough in these playoff matchups, where there are positions that you can be a little bit more flexible with. You have some wiggle room. You don't have bona fide starters, so you're kind of toying with some guys that you think could play for some upside. So I was the benefactor of Kyle Pitts in one league, and then I did get Kyle Pitts in another league. So, it's just kind of the way it runs sometimes. But we'll talk through our lineups this week, Jake. I have 3 leagues that I'm in the semifinals in. All of them are on Sleeper. I'm sharing my screen if you're watching on YouTube, so you can follow along. This is just going to be a real easy way for us to really gauge how I am determining who I'm starting, who I'm playing against. And then if you have any input or advice on some of the guys that are on my bench, or maybe even some guys that are available in free agency that would be better starts, I'm all ears. So let's run through my first lineup here, Jake. This is my main league of record. This is the one that Shishot has won in the last 2 years, and he's won 3 of 4, I believe. So he is also in the semifinals on the other side of the bracket again. So I absolutely have to try to beat Ben this week to hopefully get a rematch with him in the finals. Ben is, of course, Delta, who is also in our Dynasty League, who is also who I'm playing in that semifinal. So I get to face off against Ben in 2 of the 3 leagues that I remain in. So that's definitely interesting. But this league of record, half-point PPR, 12 teams, standard scoring for the most part. So looking at the lineup here, Jake, quarterbacks, I'm starting Joe Burrow at Miami. He is starting Jacoby Brissett. He did actually pick up Jacoby Brissett last minute, and he's starting him over Brock Purdy. Kind of feel like I dropped the ball a little bit there. I could have definitely picked up Jacoby Brissett and played a little defense on him, but I honestly thought he was just going to start Brock Purdy anyway. So I feel like hopefully between the 2 of those guys, there's not too high of a variance or difference in the points that they put out. But Jacoby Brissett, we've already talked about it the last couple of weeks, has been one of the most consistent quarterbacks in all of fantasy football. I don't think he's had a bust week since he started, so he's about as consistent as they come.
Yep. No, totally agree. And especially in the matchup against Atlanta. Atlanta's kind of thrown it in for the season at this point. Did decide to beat Tampa just to put a damper on them on Thursday. But, not a team that's really going to be trying hard in a non-divisional matchup. Still starting Kirk Cousins. I feel like it's a great matchup where Brissett's going to be on the field a lot. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Joe Burrow coming off a bad week, coming off all those emotions, all the talks of him not having fun, not enjoying the sport. They did come out and say he's going to play the final games, even though they're technically mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So pretty interesting that he's going to still play. It's just a really juicy matchup at Miami, who is benching Tua. They're starting Quinn Ewers. I don't think that team is going to play for anything except tanking basically at this point. When Zach Wilson's your backup quarterback and Quinn Ewers is your starter, Tua is the emergency third string. So I just don't think they have any desire to want to win this game. So this is a good matchup for Joe Burrow, absolutely. So I feel okay about the quarterback position. Running backs are a little bit heavily favored in my direction, although I don't know how I feel. Jaylen Warren, I'm taking. He's starting and he's playing against Detroit, who's really good against the run. The fear there is Kenneth Gainwell has started to dip into a lot of the play time there, specifically with pass catching downs. And it seems like every other drive, it's either Gainwell or Warren. So Warren's only playing like half of the snaps. So that is definitely a fear of mine. But luckily on the other side, you look at Ashton Jeanty, he's been a massive disappointment because his team's been so bad, and they take on the Houston Texans. So that is the one matchup that we have talked about all season, wanting to avoid any players that play against them, not named Jacoby Brissett, by the way, who also had another 20-point game against them last week. Anybody not named Jacoby Brissett, typically you want to bench against the Texans, but I don't think Ben has the luxury of doing that. So he's going to start Jeanty against Houston, and then he's starting Tony Pollard, who's come onto the scene the last couple of weeks, having massive games, but he's taking on Kansas City, who's also a pretty tough run defense. And I'm countering that with James Cook, who takes on Cleveland at Cleveland. So I don't think any of our running back matchups out of the four of those are advantageous. So all of those are a little bit fearful. Do you have any thoughts on the running backs there?
Yeah, all four brutal matchups. Pollard actually could be a sneaky good play just because Kansas City might be just shipping it in at this point. Obviously Patrick Mahomes done for the year. Really no vested interest in winning games at this point. It could just get them a better draft pick if they lose. So I think that one could be a sneaky matchup. Jeanty's probably going to have a nightmare game just because Houston's defense is so good. But both of yours are not very favorable either. Jaylen Warren's actually one that I have that currently I have on the bench. I'm not sure if we're going to talk me into swapping him into the lineup, but one that I'm sitting. And then Cook against Cleveland. Anybody against Cleveland's always a tough matchup. But, Pollard showed that you can have a big game against them. So
Pollard had his best game of the season against the Browns. So maybe James Cook will follow suit there.
And the hope is Josh Allen's so good that it takes a little bit of the focus off of Cook throughout the week.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely the goal. If we jump over to wide receivers, I've got AJ Brown. He's taking on the Commanders in Washington. So that's a really good matchup. I know he's been not as consistent as I would have hoped, but he's come on recently. And I think the Eagles have realized that a lot of their offense can, function quite optimally if they just get the ball into the hands of AJ Brown. And then my other receiver, Jamar Chase, it's the Burrow stack. He's taking on Miami. Again, another great matchup in my opinion. So my receivers have pretty good matchups. Now, there is a little bit of a controversy in this league in terms of what happened. Run through it real quick. Puka, he's got Puka. He's playing tonight. He's playing against Seattle at Seattle. I've heard the weather's not supposed to be the best. Winds up to 40 miles an hour and some rain. So that could definitely hinder his output. We know Devontae Adams is not playing. But Jake, here is the dilemma or the controversy that unfolded in this league. So last week, the guy that I beat in the wild card round, he ended up dropping T. Higgins because he thought T. Higgins was out for the season. Now, he was just concussed. He wasn't ruled out for the season at all. Ben had the number one waiver pick. So Ben was able to pick up T. Higgins. And now you can see how this kind of could potentially triple screw me. I have Joe Burrow, right? So any points that Joe Burrow gets that goes to T. Higgins, I'm getting less of those points than T. Higgins is. So that automatically kind of cancels out my quarterback. And any points that anytime Joe Burrow throws the ball to Higgins, it also takes away from the throws that he could be making to Jamar Chase. So in a way, this doesn't just single screw me or double screw me. This could potentially triple screw me. And this is all because a guy in our league dropped T. Higgins without realizing that he's not out for the season yet, even though this guy is out of the playoffs. He lost last week. So what are your thoughts on that entire situation?
I think you almost have to add him back to the roster. Like, that's a tough spot. The commissioner may need, that's one of those spots where it's tough to say, but it's one where he did intentionally drop him. So it's not like it was on accident, but he's also out of the playoffs. And, I think it also depends. It's probably somebody that's been in your league for a while. So, it's not somebody that's just throwing T. Higgins out because he's trying to tank the season and screw other people over. Whereas if it was like a new league, you don't know somebody's intentions with dropping players. So definitely see it's an issue though, especially if Miami. Higgins scores a lot of touchdowns. So it could be a huge issue for you going against him, whereas Chase will probably get more catches. But Higgins is just as likely or maybe even more likely to find the end zone.
Yeah, so it's a very, very unfortunate situation that has unfolded here. I don't know that we're going to reverse anything because, again, this league has been going on for a long time now. This is a player that's been in the league for a long time. So we're just going to chalk it up to kind of boneheaded mistake / he was butthurt that he lost and was eliminated last week. And he dropped Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL. And I think he just found an opportunity to drop other players that he was upset with that were hurt without realizing that, again, Higgins is just in concussion protocol. Now, this isn't to say that he may play this week because he's still in concussion protocol. He practiced in limited capacity yesterday. So there's still a world where he doesn't pass the concussion protocol and doesn't get to play. But if he does get to play, and if he does play a good game, this would be a really big, tragic unfolding of events for me personally. So let's just hope that, it plays out the way it should. So that's the real controversy there. But diving into tight ends, I have Kyle Pitts. I've already talked about it. I picked him up like 3 weeks ago. He's been a revelation. He had the big Pitts week last week that brought me into the semifinals. But he does have the best tight end in all of football, Trey McBride. So, and it's against Atlanta. And he's got the Jacoby Brissett stack, so you can almost chalk that up for Trey McBride's putting up at least 20 points with ease. So I don't feel great about that, especially if Drake London comes back for Atlanta. I think him being out has been the reason that Pitts has been getting as much as he's been getting. So if he comes back, then that's fearful. But if he doesn't, it'll be a nice little duel because Atlanta is actually taking on Arizona. So my tight end takes on his tight end. We could see a pretty cool little back and forth there. So I definitely think he has the advantage in terms of tight ends.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was going to say that's the biggest discrepancy of across all the matchups, I think, this week is the tight end position where, Pitts is capable of having a huge week, obviously, what he showed us last week, but the likelihood of that happening again, I think, is very low. And is London playing this week, or are they keeping him out?
They haven't officially announced it one way or another. I think he was a limited participant in practice. So I think that's going to be something that we have to monitor for the rest of the week. Because if he does play, I think I will absolutely look to potentially pivot. I don't know who with, but the fear is that they have such a targets. They basically, I forget what the word I'm looking for, but they don't spread out their targets. Like if London plays, it's all London. When London's out, it seems like it's all Pitts. So I think if London comes back, that's definitely going to take away some of the target share from Pitts, and that worries me big time, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, and not even the best game script where it could be a pretty close game. Arizona's not a team that's going to blow them out and make it where it's constantly passing. The game's probably going to be pretty close.
Exactly. Both teams already mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So, I could see a world where it is a close game. This is an interesting one, and I think this is one that you could probably shed some light on. So I have Jalen Waddle as my flex, but the problem here is twofold. Tua is benched. It is now Quinn Ewers, seventh round rookie quarterback who, again, if we talk about the Miami Dolphins offense, they're predicated on timing and rhythm. We saw what happened last year when Tua was out. They had Tyler Huntley. They had, was it Zach Wilson or Skylar Thompson or one of these random quarterbacks that filled in? And it was just a situation where if Tua was not the quarterback, the rest of the quarterbacks could not run that offense with the right timing and rhythm. And it was just so dysfunctional. It was terrible. And I think that's going to play into or factor into the situation with Jalen Waddle is they're so predicated on timing and rhythm that I don't know what this offense is going to look like with Quinn Ewers. Now, the second aspect of this is as bad as Cincinnati's defense is, Jake, they have one bright spot on their defense, and that's their cornerback, DJ Turner, who has been a shadow corner all season. And not only just a shadow corner, but he's been absolutely shut down for a lot of opposing wide receiver ones. Jalen Waddle more than likely is going to draw DJ Turner. So I don't like this matchup at all for Jalen Waddle. So I'm looking at a situation where I do want to bench Jalen Waddle, but these are my options, Jake. So help talk me through this. I did pick up Audric Estime because he is now the starting running back for the Saints who take on the Jets. They have no Alvin Kamara and Devin Neal is out. So it's going to be a split between Audric Estime and Evan Hull. Estime, I feel like, is more worthy of getting the first and second down touches. So that's why I picked him up. And you can see based on his projections, I think the sleeper and everybody else thinks he's in line to get the heavy workload as well. I do still have Rico Dowdle on my bench. He's been fantastic for stretches of the game or of the season, but with Chuba back a little bit, it seemed like they'd been splitting a little bit more. He found the end zone last week. It's not the worst matchup against Tampa Bay, so that is a potential play for me as well. And I did pick up Jayden Reed this past week. There is a world where Christian Watson is actually out. He's questionable this week to play. I know nobody likes to utilize the Packers receiver, especially in fantasy, but when Reed has been healthy, at least in prior years, they just utilize him. They draw plays specifically designed for him. So I just think he's always in the game plan to some extent. So there is some upside with him, and he's put up 40-point games in his history as well. So he's kind of that guy that I'm like, hey, this could be the wild card that turns out to be kind of a Pitts like this week against Chicago secondary, who's pretty bad. They're playing for playoffs against Chicago. It is in Chicago, but if Watson's out, I'm very, very intrigued. I'm less intrigued with Alec Pierce with Phillip Rivers, unfortunately, so that's kind of out the window. So for me, my options here as far as right now are, do I put in Audric Estime, Rico Dowdle, or Jayden Reed over Jalen Waddle here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, not even being a Homer fan here with this, I do like the game script overall for Rico. He's on my team as well. He's one of the three running backs I'm considering for my RB2 slot this week. Haven't 100% decided if he's going to be the decision for me yet, but I do like the game script simply because I think not that we're going to be leading and running the ball a lot. I think what the Panthers are going to try to do in this game is slow down the pace. You want to keep Baker off of the field. We want to control the time of possession in this game, make them work, because if we get into a shootout, we're not going to beat Tampa. You know, they're a team that can go up and down the field, score a ton of points. So I think it's going to be a pretty heavy dose of Rico and probably some Chuba mixed in as well, which that would be the part that would scare me is how much of that's Chuba, how much of that's Rico. We kind of feed the hot hand. So if one of them comes in, breaks a 10, 15-yard run, they're probably going to control the majority of that game. So there's a world where Rico gets phased out, but I think Waddle's just a risky play this week with Ewers starting, and I think the offense is really, like you said, running through rhythm. So I think ideal week if you're an A-Chain owner, where unfortunately I'm playing in a fifth place game with A-Chain on my team instead of in the third, instead of in a semifinal. But A-Chain has an ideal situation this week because it's going to be all checkdowns or tight end, quick throws, because that's kind of the way their offense is going to work, especially with Quinn Ewers now starting. Probably not going to be trusting him to sling it down the field, even though he is capable of doing that. If they did decide to unleash him, it could be a huge week for Waddle. But I just think that the likelihood of that taking place is pretty low.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough to trust a guy like Audric Estime in the semifinals when he hasn't played all season, and now the Saints who have nothing to play for. I know they're playing the Jets. That's a really, really good matchup. So I think that's the biggest reason I'm like, man, I don't know. That seems kind of juicy. But you're right. Rico's proven they want to control the clock. They want to keep Tampa Bay off the field. You mentioned it. Now Tampa Bay has all of their healthy receivers, so their weapons and offense automatically jumps to becoming that much scarier. So I just think that is the game script for Carolina is control the clock, time of possession, run the heck out of the ball, and then utilize some play action with Bryce. So I think the usage is definitely going to be in Rico's favor. I think upside wise, I think Jayden Reed has the ability to put together like a monster performance, or he could just get 5 catches for 40 yards and maybe get one end around. So he does offer the boom bust potential. I think Estime offers a safe floor just because there's only him and Evan Hull, but I don't know what kind of upside I can really play for with him. But we've seen Rico Dowdle, in games as the game progresses get better and stronger. And so this could be one of those games, again, divisional matchup. You're trying to win the division here. This is about as big a game as Carolina's had in the regular season in recent memory, in my opinion. So I just think this is a game where they're going to try really, really hard to minimize mistakes and control the clock. And the way to do that is pound the rock. So even if they're both getting work, if they're just running the ball 40 times and each of them touches it 20 times, I think I'm going to be pretty happy with that. So that's why I'm with you right now. I do lean Rico Dowdle as who I'm going to change and start out. But it is scary nonetheless. And then real quickly,
another big thing too is real quick, Canales does not change the game plan, even if we get jumped early. If they go up 10, 14 points early, he's not going to just air it out with Bryce. That's not our offense. We're not going to come out in first, second, third down, throw the football. We're still going to be running the football unless it's late fourth quarter. So even if the Panthers get jumped early on, they're down 10, 14 very quickly, still a great option where he's going to touch the football plenty throughout the game.
Yep. No, I think that definitely bodes well for me as well. So I think my gut instinct tells me I'm going to start Rico Dowdle. He got 16 carries last game, played 60% of snaps. Even the week before when he only played 42%, he got 18 carries. So I just think that workload
and against a good New Orleans team, like a good New Orleans run defense, actually.
Yep, exactly. And then real quick, obviously kicker, I'm going McPherson. He hasn't had the best of couple of weeks because the offense as a whole has been down, but Miami's a bad defense. They should be able to move the ball. And I think Kansas City defense has a pretty advantageous matchup against Tennessee at Tennessee. Tennessee's been a little bit better, but I still think this is a good matchup to go to roll them out against. So that is kind of what I'm looking at in my main league. Projections have me slightly the advantage, but this is again a underdog story as I was the 6th seed at 7-7, and I'm taking on the 2nd seed, I believe, in Ben, who is the who had a first round bye. So we'll see. Best of luck to me here.
Consistently, Ben doesn't like to draft running backs, does he?
No, he's a big.
I just know in our other league, he doesn't have any either.
Yep, he's a big best player available kind of guy. This draft actually went kind of crazy for him, where I'm pretty sure he drafted like 6 wide receivers in a row. Like he didn't get a running back, and then he had to trade. He had CeeDee Lamb, I believe, on this team as well, and he traded Lamb for Genty like before the season even started because he needed a running back. Didn't pay off for him, but it does help him at least have a viable running back to start at least. So. All right, this is a league that I'm in with you, Jake. We'll try to run through this a little bit quicker. Half PPR. This is a 10-man league, so rosters are going to look slightly better. But this is the projections. For some reason, projections say I'm projected to win by 20 points, which is pretty outrageous. But same situation here. I have the Burrow Chase stack. Feel the same way about that. We talked about Puka. I have to play Puka. Bijan's a must start. Bucky Irving's a must start for me. So there's not a lot of decision making for me here. I just have basically my best players playing. McBride, a must start. My only real dilemma here is I picked up the Saints defense to play against the Jets. I'm starting them over both the Rams and Seattle defense because they're playing each other. So I don't feel great about that. And then my flex spot, I am right now starting Mike Evans, who's finally back from injury. He's taking on Carolina, but he's their best receiver. And already 1 week back, he had 12 targets, 6 for over 100 yards. So I feel the best about him. But I do have a couple of options here, 3 running backs, Estime, Jones, and Pollard. So I like the matchup for Aaron Jones. It's just he splits work with Jordan Mason, so he doesn't offer a high floor or a high upside even. But I think Mike Evans gives me a potential floor and a potential upside because he could get 3 touchdowns any given week if he wants to. So I think that's the way I'm running this lineup, unless you think I should sub anybody in for Evans that I already have on my bench.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love Evans' matchup, but I think compared to what you have on your bench, he's probably going to be the best choice. I mean, Panthers do have a really good secondary. We do really well at stopping the pass, but they have so many weapons. Like you said, I think that he's going to get his individual targets where he has one-on-ones. We are a pretty heavy zone team, so you're really not going to see it, which I think kind of favors Mike Evans rather than having Horn shadow him throughout the game and be a pest all day long. Yep. We're going to sit in zones, so you can line him up on opposite sides of the field. You can take him outside of the zones. If he's reading the defense correctly, then there should be plenty of opportunity for him to get the ball. I don't know that this game's going to be all that high scoring. I think we're going to try to really slow the pace, but I think he's definitely going to get the most volume out of all the players you had on your bench there. Yep, plus, Estime just happens to get 20 carries.
Yeah, that's the other thing, but it's just really hard to run Estime out there first week, right? So I think that's the biggest fear. I don't feel great about Pollard against Kansas City because I am starting Kansas City defense in my other league, so I still think their defense will show up even though Mahomes is injured. It's almost like they might rally even harder because Mahomes is injured. So, and it's a good matchup to just kind of beat the shit out of Tennessee. So I just think—
And Tyler Shuck also loves to run the ball. So down there, the goal line, Estime's probably not going to score. Shuck's going to try to take it himself. He's done it consistently in almost all of his starts. So you also run the risk of kind of similar to what the Giants have, where Dart's going to vulture your touchdowns. Same with Hurts and Barkley situation, Allen and Cook. It's a lot of these quarterbacks that like to run the football can vulture touchdowns, which I think would be the best bet of starting Estime as you're hoping, 15 carries, 60 yards and a touchdown in there.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's the goal. I think other than that, everything else is pretty straightforward with me. I will say that this is crazy because Garrett's entire lineup has green matchups. So they're all in positive matchups or positive situations, except for Kenneth Gainwell. But again, Kenneth Gainwell is not a typical running back. He's more of a pass catching running back, and Detroit's terrible against pass catchers. So I think he's got all green matchups. So it's very, very scary. What could happen? I would take
the lineup where Jefferson could be due for an explosion as well. It's coming at any time now. He's going against the Giants.
Yep.
I mean, he has a lot of guys that can drop 20 at any time. Like Rice doesn't seem like the matchup's perfect just because Mahomes being out, but a lot of even Goddard potential to drop 20, 25 points. So all
against
guys
Washington
can boom and have a massive week.
Yep. And we just talked about it's an ideal week to have Achane. Well, he has Achane and he's taking on Cincinnati. So pretty ideal situation for him. But that is—
could easily be a 2-touchdown week.
Yep. That's the semifinal matchup in our league of record. Now, here is the dynasty team. I am projected to lose in this one. But I think for me, there's not a lot of lineup decisions to make here because my roster is basically my roster and my bench doesn't have a lot of players to use. So I'm in a situation where I'm playing against a pretty stacked team just on paper. I mean, he's got JSN, he's got Bijan, Brissett's been awesome.
As I said, this is the same guy that doesn't draft running backs. As you see, he starts
two running backs on the same. Yep. And his receivers are insane. Pickens and Jigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's starting Ricky Pearsall. The only problem here is it's 2 quarterbacks or super flex, and I don't have a second quarterback to start. So I am having to start a receiver, and I'm having to start 3 tight ends, even though it's a tight end premium, but I don't feel great about that. So projections say I'm projected to lose. I don't have a lot of flexibility on my bench to really replace anybody with any of these players. So it's kind of like I'm starting the players I have. The only player I could potentially sub in is Jaden Higgins for the Houston Texans. But again, it's not a situation that I love. So this is kind of
nothing else,
what it is.
I can say that I had two of my players make it to the semifinals because I sent you Christian McCaffrey and Jake Ferguson. So two of my players at least made it to the semifinals if I didn't.
If CMC can get me 30 points, bro, I'll basically just pretend like you won it all. So just I need CMC to have a massive week to make up for the inefficiencies in my roster. But that's what I got, man. I know you have yours on ESPN, but it's not pulling up for you, so we don't have to share the screen, but you can just run through your lineup and we can talk through it.
Yeah. So real quick, quarterback, I think it's kind of an easier decision, but Baker Mayfield versus Carolina or Drake May this week. So trying to decide whether I feel like you have to go Drake May in this scenario.
He basically was one of the best draft picks of the entire season. He's been a revelation. I just don't see a world where you're benching him. Who are they
Funny
playing?
Enough, he was the second quarterback I took.
Yeah, that's crazy. Who's Drake May playing?
Let me look. They play the Ravens this Sunday. Yeah, so pretty favorable matchup.
Yeah, not a bad matchup at all. I would definitely roll out Drake May there.
Yeah. Running backs, so Kyren Williams for me is an auto start. Even though Seattle's pretty good, I just feel like he's a player that you can never bench. He's one of the big reasons I've gotten here, so he's going to be in the lineup. And then I have three other running backs. One of these I actually haven't – the RB2 right now I have is Rico. Not 100% sold on that. I have Jaylen Warren currently sitting in the flex, and I have Javonte Williams on my bench right now. So I'm trying to decide if I bring him into one of those positions or what we think about those matchups.
Javonte's taking on the Chargers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough matchup. The reason I like Jaylen Warren even more than Javonte in that situation is Jaylen Warren's at least capable of catching passes as well, even though Gainwell does it as well. But now they're using Gainwell in first and second down, so that on some drives it's Warren first and second down, Gainwell third down. On some drives it's Gainwell first and second down, Warren on third down. So they're
also keep in mind this is a full point PPR league. This is a full 1 point PPR.
The catches are going to play. The catches are definitely going to matter. So I think in that regard, I'm probably leaning Warren. I just don't know how much running offense the Dallas Cowboys are even going to be able to muster. And Javonte injured his shoulder last week, so he's also coming off an injury. I don't feel the best about it. They're out of the playoffs. What's their real reason to work him to the ground? You might see much more Malik Davis. So I feel like I don't trust Javonte there. So I feel good about the guys you have in the lineup, Rico and Jaylen Warren.
Nice. And you'll have to follow me because I don't have the screen share here. But, we also want to consider, is there one of these receivers that we would put into the flex spot, move one of the running back twos or move the running back out? So CeeDee Lamb's an auto start for me this week. He's going to start every single week. My other three receivers are Ladd, Sutton, and Ricky Pearsall.
I think this week you have to start Ladd. Cowboys are one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. I mean, we just saw JJ McCarthy absolutely torch that defense. And I think Herbert has an easy opportunity to do so. Quentin Johnston was on the injury report, and he didn't play last week. And I think rookie Trey Harris saw like the second most snaps on the team besides Ladd. So if QJ doesn't play and they're having to start a rookie, I feel that much better about Ladd. And Keenan Allen's older, man. So they just don't use him as much. He doesn't run as many routes. They have to try to keep him fresh for a potential playoff run. So I think Ladd is an absolute must play this week. So that's I would put him as your second receiver. Ricky Pearsall plays Monday night against Indianapolis. And then who was the other receiver you had?
Sutton.
Sutton's playing who?
Who do they play this week? It's the sorry, I'm trying to get my ESPN pulled up in front of me. Oh, they have the Jags. That's right.
Yeah, and the Jags are a pretty good defense, actually. They're very, very under the radar. Yeah. So I personally would actually put it's PPR, right? Yeah, I would put Ladd in there.
That's what I'm wondering is like I have three running backs starting now, which you typically think in a full point PPR is not what you're wanting to do. You typically are wanting to run out three. So it's like, do I put in like a Sutton or Ricky Pearsall into that flex spot instead of a Jaylen Warren, or take Rico Dowdle out and put Jaylen Warren into the running back 2 slot?
So the problem is Ricky Pearsall re-injured his knee or something this past week. So he's on the injury report. So I already don't trust him as it is because he could come and play, be out after one play, and you cannot risk that in your semifinals. So I would automatically rule him out. Sutton is he's a good consistent target, but I don't know that PPR makes that big of a difference for him. I know there's some weeks where he has good weeks, but they're playing the Jaguars, and the Jaguars are a good defense. So I expect that to be a pretty back and forth, maybe lower scoring game or just a lot more field goals. So I personally go Ladd, Lamb as your 2 receivers, and I run the 3 running backs out there because, again, with Rico, you're going to get first down, second down work. So the carry load is going to be there for him to be on the field and get touches. And then with Jaylen Warren, like I said, we just talked about it. Last week, his usage was a little bit down because he was also under the weather. I think if he's not sick this week, it's going to be slightly more leaning his way, even though we know Gainwell works into the fold with them. But like I mentioned, Jaylen Warren works on third downs when Gainwell's playing first and second, and then vice versa. So Jaylen Warren is just also consistently on the field. So I think with all that being said and the good matchups, I think you run the 3 running backs out there and you go 2 wide receivers, even if it is full PPR.
Yeah. And then tight end, it's Mark Andrews, he's playing against New England. And then we have Kincaid, who's playing against Cleveland this week. Kincaid makes me a little nervous just because Knox has actually been the better of the 2 the last 2 weeks. But
and they both get used.
Pretty consistent as well. Yeah,
they both get used. So you don't love starting a tight end that's only splitting, like splitting snaps, you know?
Yeah. But Andrew, I mean, quarterback situation wise, of course, I love Josh Allen a lot more than I love Lamar Jackson right now. And then New England's not a bad defense either. Like, I think that could be a reasonably tough matchup for them this week.
Do you have any streamable options for tight end in that league? Who's available in free agency for tight ends? You can even check on
Harold Fant out there.
Yeah, that's not a bad matchup. He's taking on the Bills, right?
Yeah, so just be the opposite side of Kincaid.
Yeah, honestly, and it's full PPR, you said?
Yeah.
And
Shedeur is obviously still starting, so he's going to be
I actually
the tight end a lot.
Barring it being like a snowstorm in Cleveland, so weather definitely something you want to check. I would start fanning out of all those guys for sure, especially because it's full PPR.
Yeah. And then kicker and defense, I have 2 guys I've kind of been rolling with for most of the year. Evan McPherson, he was a more midseason pickup. And then Eagles defense, I've had pretty much consistently starting just because they're one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, and they have a good matchup against Washington and Mariota this week, so you love that. And McPherson, I'm also starting because they're taking on Miami, and you expect that offense to at least be in scoring territory a lot. So I like it, man.
I think it's Puka and Gibbs this week, so really, really tough matchup.
So we're going to be watching the games tonight. You're going to be rooting for Kyren Williams. I'm going to be rooting for Puka. You're going to be rooting against Puka.
Yeah, have to. Me and Garrett both will be rooting against Puka tonight.
Oh, man. The weather could be a huge factor. They said wind, and so it could be a lot of rain and wind, which means good for Kyren, more running for Kyren, and less throwing for Puka. So that could actually work out in your favor. And I have the kicker, Jason Myers, so that could also affect me if the weather is pretty bad. So definitely things to factor in.
And playing against their defense.
Yep. And playing against Seattle defense. So, So absolutely. That is it, man. 3 leagues for me, 1 league for you. I just think that's very, very helpful because it gets people in the mindset of how we think and how we make our decisions, what factors are important to us. Every little decision is going to make a tremendous impact because this is it. Win or go home. And if you win, you move on to, kind of what you've been playing all year for, the big game, the championship. So let's hope all of us at least advance in one of our leagues. Jake, you're one of one, so you need to make it in that league. And I have 3 chances to at least win and get into the finals in one of my leagues. But
going for back-to-back titles in this league, though.
Yeah, that would be really nice. That would be really nice to do. So we'll see how it goes. But good luck to all of you that are in the semifinals. If you're in a consolation bracket, still try. You don't want to be the Sacco and get last place. Nobody wants to be that. If you're watching, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. It's where all of our socials are. I'm Sweetcard. That is Jake. Again, good luck on your matchups. Let's all talk next week in our championship games. See ya.